Everybody, this is Sue Altmeyer, and this is the second video in our Advanced Legal Research tax module. So we are going to talk about secondary sources. First, we should remember what secondary sources are. Secondary sources describe and explain the law, and they cite two primary sources. Secondary sources are persuasive at best. You should probably not cite to them if you are submitting a brief in a tax court or the district court or what have you. But they are a good place to start. They can save you a lot of time and energy, and they offer very clear explanations of what's often very confusing concepts. So one I wanted to point out in Westlaw, let's see, if you go to practice areas and tax, if you click over here on the right hand side to secondary sources, you can see a whole ton of different secondary sources. You might want to limit to just texts and treatises, for example, because those are going to be some good big secondary sources. One that I would recommend, you could either find it alphabetically on this list, or if I just simply type in Federal Tax Coordinator. The Federal Tax Coordinator, it's a very large and well-respected set on federal tax. It is organized by topic, not by Internal Revenue Code section, so it might be a little bit easier for someone who's not familiar with the code. So the next database with tax secondary sources, as well as primary sources that I'm going to tell you about, is called Cheetah. So if you're at the University of Akron Law Library homepage, click on Law Databases and scroll down. And I'm going to get to Cheetah, formerly known as IntelliConnect. And it's going to take me to a catalog record, so I just click on the name of the resource. Some attorneys use Cheetah, formerly known as CCH IntelliConnect, instead of Lexis or Westlaw, and for tax research specifically. Cheetah has lots of different resources in different practice areas, one of which is tax. The same thing with Bloomberg Law. Attorneys might just decide to purchase Bloomberg Law or just the tax portion of Bloomberg Law and use that instead of, or possibly in addition to, Lexis or Westlaw. We have the option of going to federal, estates and gifts, international, state and local. I'm going to show you a couple resources under federal. The first resource I'm going to talk about is the Standard Federal Tax Reporter. The Standard Federal Tax Reporter is a pretty huge set of materials. It is organized by Internal Revenue Code sections, as you could see here. If I'm interested in a particular code section, such as Section 61, on gross income and the definition of gross income, you see that the Standard Federal Tax Reporter gives me the actual code section right here, as well as there's these little boxes that say related items. I could click on them and I can get committee reports, in other words, legislative history documents. I can get regulations related to this code section, CCH explanations, which are very expertly prepared explanations dealing with this code section and how it's applied, annotations, which are discussions of various topics dealing with that code section, as well as citations to other primary sources and other related items. You can also access these additional materials by using this left-hand navigation bar. So for example, here we have the code section, then we have a regulation. I could tell by the numbering here that it's a regulation, and this is a regulation about gross income in general. And so then I'm going to have a CCH explanation about gross income in general, various explanations on a couple different topics here, and annotations. And then I'm going to get down to different regulations, such as this one about compensation for services, and that is going to have related explanations and annotations as well. So that is the Standard Federal Tax Reporter. The next resources that I'm going to talk about is the U.S. Master Tax Guide. The U.S. Master Tax Guide is located in your federal tax materials under Legislation, Analysis, and News. And here it is. You notice that this says Master Tax Guide for 2018. Master Tax Guide comes out every year, and it's useful when you are preparing tax returns. This Master Tax Guide for 2018 actually is going to have information for preparing 2017 returns. Another way to access the Master Tax Guide is by using this Titles A to Z. And another thing that I could do is I could search within all of federal tax up here using this search box. I could search within all of federal tax, or I could specify to search. I could search, various filters, filter out to document type, such as just rules and regulations or agency materials. I could filter by court, etc. Another thing I could do is I could search just particular content. For example, I can search just the standard federal tax reporter. If I click this button, I'm searching just within the standard federal tax reporter, or I could even search within a particular section of the standard federal tax reporter. For example, if I'm only interested in this part that has the sections about income, I could just search within that. And that is Cheetah. The next item I wanted to show you is Bloomberg Law, and you may or may not have used Bloomberg Law before, but Bloomberg Law has a very good practice center for tax. You could see that there's tax reform information right up front about what's the currently pending legislation in Congress. There's quick links to statutes and regulations, quick links to various agency documents so you can search those. The secondary sources are over here under expert analysis. Some of my favorite ones, and really everybody's favorite ones that does any research in tax, is the Bna Tax Management Portfolios. And you have different portfolios for U.S. income, estates, gifts, and trusts, international, as well as accounting for income taxes. So the portfolios are super easy to understand. If you just open one up, you could drill down, you could search. If you know the portfolio number, say I want portfolio 515, divorce and separation, I could just go to that. And we see that there's detailed analysis on many topics as well as working papers. So you see if I click on a particular section, and this is even a very short section, it gives me the relevant regulations, the relevant code sections. There's a case, chief counsel advice. Here's a revenue ruling it cites right here. So it's pulling everything together for you. Another thing I wanted to point out on Bloomberg Law is that the tax section is organized by federal, state, international, specialties, daily tax report. That's a super good current awareness service. And I should point out if you go to a particular code section on Bloomberg Law, so here's my code section 166 about bad debts. Over on the side here, it's going to give me the related Treasury regulations, all the related regulations, as well as citing cases, other related content, committee reports. Let's look at other related content a minute. So it gives you everything here, related portfolios, secondary sources, additional analysis, statutes, regulations, agency documents, news that relates to that particular code section. So if you haven't signed up for Bloomberg Law yet, just go to bloomberglaw.com. You should see a screen like this, and you could click on register. Registers for a student account. Just use your UAkron email address, and you can get access to Bloomberg Law. Okay, last but definitely not least is Lexis. So on Lexis, if you click on practice area or industry and go to tax law, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. And here's some secondary material. The last thing I wanted to let you know about is from the Law Library's homepage, Akron Law Library's homepage, if you click on library guides, we don't have a research guide for tax, but if you go to major legal treatises and you could pick whatever subject you want, and if I pick taxation, this will give me links directly into some of the major secondary sources.